श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रम् धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणम् वन्दे रम्यजामातरम् मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भाम् नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यम् अच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणम् प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः।
श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रम् धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणम् वन्दे रम्यजामातरम् मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भाम् नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणम् प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः। या या वृत्तिर्मनसि मनसा जायतां संस्मृतिस्ते यो यो जल्पः स भवतु विभो नाम संकीर्तनन्ते या या चेष्टा वपुषि भगवन् सा भवेद्वन्दनन्ते सर्वं भूयाद्वरवरमुने सम्यगाराधनन्ते। So in the previous class we observed the background with which Swami Manavada Mamuni has started his commentary to the Mumuksupadi. More importantly, the first chapter of Mumuksupadi, which is known as the Tirumantra Prakarana. So, unfortunately, we could not see the slides that had been prepared for this purpose. Very quickly, I will run you through the slides and directly come to the topic of today's class. So, we just go through this because I had prepared this especially for this purpose. Is the slide visible?
Yes.
So we have covered all these aspects in detail. That is the Supreme Lord Narayana, his Nitya Vibhuti and Leela Vibhuti. And the primary wish of the Supreme Lord is that even those bonded Jivatmas currently languishing in the Leela Vibhuti, that is the material world, should come to Vaikuntha and enjoy the same bliss as others already are doing. Like the Nitya Muktas, like Ananta, Garuda, Vishwaksena, and so many other Jivatmas who have entered the Supreme Lord's abode. This is possible only when they become the recipient of the divine grace of the Lord. And for them to become eligible to do so, the bonded Jivatmas need to be empowered. For this purpose, they are granted the facility of a body and sense organs. Then we come to the green box. The knowledge of the Vedas and their subsidiaries that they need to know by using their body and sense organs was also imparted to the world. But this could facilitate only a fraction of society, as these are not in the reach of the common man. And as a result of this situation, the three Rahasya mantras that are universally accessible were given by the Supreme Lord himself. And this we have already explained the fivefold principle, that is the Artha Panchaka, Prapyasya Brahmano Rupam, Praptuscha Pratyagatmanaha, Praptyupayam Phalam Praptehe, Tatha Prapti Virodhicha, Vadanti Sakala Vedaha, Setihasa Puranakaha, Munayascha Mahatmano Veda Vedanta Vedina. So this shloka was also explained in detail. And these are the three rahasyas, the Ashtakshara Mahamantra, also known as the Mula Mantra or Mantra Raja, Dvaya Mantra, the Mantra Ratna, and Charama Shloka, the three Charama Shlokas which have already been explained by me in the earlier classes. And now we come directly to the first sutra. Mumukshuvukku ariya vendum rahasyam moonru. So what is the purport of this sutra? The literal meaning is as follows. I have just given it immediately below the sutra itself. The sutra is highlighted in blue color in italics. I will be following the same convention throughout this series of lectures. And immediately below the blue color text which gives the sutra, I will give the literal meaning of the sutra. A mumukshu, which means person desirous of attaining liberation, has to know three rahasyas. This is the literal meaning of the sutra. So who is a mumukshu? So Swami Manavala Mamunihan very beautifully describes how this word is derived. He gives the etymological derivation of this word. So he says, Muchul remokshane ire dhatu. I will just read out that portion. Even just listening to the what we call as the Shri Suktis. So in Shri Vaishnava Sampradaya, there is a very unique tradition where all the important aspects are prefixed with the word Shri or Thiru. So the Suktis are the words of our Purvacharyas which have been documented are known as Shri Suktis. And the books that they have authored, for example, a physical book is known as a Shri Kosham. So all the important aspects are prefixed with the word Shri. So these are the Shri Suktis of Swami Manavala Mamunihan. So he says, Mumukshuvukku ariya vendum rahasyam moonru. Mumukshuvahiran mokshattile ichchayai udayanavan. Muchal remokshane ire dhatu. Ittal samsara vimochanattil இச்சை பிறந்தவனுக்கு என்றபடி ஆத்ம பிராப்தி காமனுக்கும் முமுட்சத்துவம் உண்டே ஆகிலும் இவ்விடத்தில் அவன் விவக்ஷிதமன்னு அவனுக்கு ரகசியத்ரே ஞானாபேட்சை இல்லையிரே ஆகையால் இவர் முமுக்ஷு என்கிறது பகவத் பிராப்தி காமதையா சம்சார நிவர்த்தியில் இச்சை பிறந்தவனை. So very beautifully he delineates what the word mumukshu actually means. So in this context, we have to understand two or three important aspects. The first aspect is, how is the word mumukshu derived? It is derived from the root muchulre, which means mokshane, that means liberation. So in Sanskrit, it is to be noted that certain facilities are available to convey in a single word what requires many words to convey in other languages. For example, the word mumukshu means moktum ichuhu mumukshuhu. In English, we call it as the desiderative form. So, mumukshu means a person desirous of attaining moksha. So is that all that is intended to be conveyed by the word mumukshu? No. There is something more that needs to be conveyed here. So here it says, Ittal samsara vimotanattil ichchai pirandavanukku engirapadi. So a person who wants to transcend the cycle of births and deaths and just a minute. who wants to transcend the cycle of births and deaths. And then not only that, he wants to attain the Supreme Lord and enjoy unalloyed bliss. And here Swami Manavala Mamuni makes a distinction between an Atma Prapti Kama and Mumukshu. So in Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, there are two types of liberations, we can say, according to one school of thought. That is a Mumukshu, or for example a Muktatma who has attained moksha, and a Kaivalya, a person who has attained Kaivalya. Though from the point of view of Sanskrit language, purely from the language point of view, both are used as synonyms. Because the Amarakosha mentions Mukti Kaivalya Nirvana Shreyo Nishreyasamritam. Mukti, Kaivalya, Moksha, etc. are all considered to be synonyms. But when we actually see this from the point of view of the Vishishtadvaita philosophy and also Sri Vaishnava religion or Sampradaya, there is a huge distinction between a Muktatma and a Kevala, a person who has attained Kaivalya. It is mentioned in our Sampradaya works that a person who attains Kaivalya does not enter the portals of Vaikuntha. He is not admitted to the Vaikuntha, but he also enjoys the bliss of the Jivatma only, or the individual soul only. Even the individual soul is considered to be of Jnananandaika Swarupa, that is, he is also of the nature of knowledge and bliss. But a Kevala is considered as a person who does not wish to, and therefore who is not entitled to enjoy the bliss of the Supreme Brahman. So that is why Manavala Mamuni makes a specific distinction. He says, Atma Pramanu Prapti Kamanukkum Mumukshutvam Unde Ahilam Ivvidattillavan Vivakshitamanne. Even though a person who desires to attain Kaivalya, as delineated in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, he is also a Mumukshu because he also wants to transcend the cycle of births and deaths. But such a person is not the target audience of this work, of the Mumuksupadi, because he does not require the knowledge of the Rahasya Trayas. He has his own path to follow, though he is also a Mumukshu in letter, not in spirit. Because when you apply the literal meaning of the term Mumukshu, one who wishes to attain liberation from the cycle of births and deaths, such a person is not targeted here because his path is totally different. He wants to enjoy the bliss that is associated only with the Jivatma. And therefore, he will forever continue to live in a location that is not associated with Vaikuntha. There is not much clarity on this aspect, where he is, how he becomes, etc. There is some information because it's a very abstract thing. My Acharya used to say, all these knowledges or all these concepts are extremely abstract concepts. So we may not have the necessary words to convey what they actually need to convey, because we don't have words that actually denote such abstract entities or abstract issues or aspects. So therefore, there is a very gross differentiation between a person who wants to attain Kaivalya and a person who wants to attain moksha in the real sense of it. So Swami Manavala Mamuni clearly distinguishes between these two. and says a Kaivalyarthi or a person who wishes to attain Kaivalya is not intended to be addressed here. So he is not considered mumukshu in this context. Aheyal mumukshu girade bhagavat prapti kamataya samsara nivrittil ichchai pirandavanai. How beautifully Manavana Mamuni states. He states, as is mentioned in this slide, you can see, a person desirous of attaining Supreme Lord and liberation from the material world, or attaining liberation from the material world, or I would like to put it like that rather, a person desirous of liberation from the material world and attaining the Supreme Lord. That is how it should be actually captioned. So he actually gives up the material world. He wants to give up the material world with the sole aim of attaining Supreme Lord. That is how a mumukshu is defined. So when we say we define something, for example, as far as Indian philosophy is concerned, or concepts of Indian philosophy is concerned, we say if you have to define an elephant, how do you do it? You mention its unique aspects or aspects that are exclusive to that entity. For example, if you have to define an elephant, the Western methodology of doing so, as we have studied it, is you say it has 4 legs, it has 2 eyes, it has a stomach, it has a tail, etc., and also a trunk. Whereas the Indian methodology of defining an object is, you need not mention the common aspects. So, for example, if you say 4 legs, 4 legs are common to cows, they are common to buffaloes, they are common to deer, they are common to horses, and so many other animals. So you mention only the unique and exclusive aspect of that entity, which says if it has a trunk, it is an elephant. So no other animal possesses a trunk, and therefore you say that the trunk, an elephant is defined by its trunk. All the elephants have a trunk, and other than an elephant, no other animal possesses a trunk. Similarly, when you say we define something, it has to be very clear-cut, it has to be exclusive, it has to be comprehensive. So, Swami Manavana Mamuni defines what a mumukshu is. He says, a person desirous of attaining the Supreme Lord through liberation from this material world. And then he says, this mantra, this mumukshu, is defined by 3 aspects, which we will mention later, which we will be mentioning in the next slide. And before that, he says, why are you mentioning the Tirumantra first? The answer is, the Tirumantra gives the most important knowledge, it imparts most important knowledge about 3 aspects. Svajnanam prapakajnanam prapyajnanam mumukshubhihi jnanatrayam upadeyam etadanyanna kinchana. A mumukshu should strive for nothing other than these 3. That is, knowledge of the Supreme Lord Narayana, knowledge of himself, that is the Jivatma or individual soul, and thirdly, knowledge of the means for the Jivatma to attain the Supreme Lord. This is generally mentioned in this format, that is, Tirumantra or Ashtakshara Mahamantra gives the knowledge of the Supreme Lord. Mantra Ratna or the Dvaya Mantra gives the knowledge of the Jivatma. And the Charama Shloka gives the knowledge of the means, that is Prapatti. But it is not exclusively like that, it is generally mentioned in this format. And then further, what is the purport of the present sutra? The purport of the present sutra is, it delineates the adhikari or the target person or person fit to study the current work. And secondly, delineation of the subject matter, that is the three rahasya aspects. So who is the adhikari or the person fit to study the current work? We have noted some aspects of who a mumukshu actually is. Further, there is more to it than what we have already read now. And that is mentioned in the second sutra, which is as follows. So before we go to the second sutra, I will just read out the other aspects Manavada Mamuni has mentioned in his Vyakhyana. ஏவம் பூதனானவனுக்கு அறிய வேண்டும் ரகசியம் மூன்று என்றது இவனுக்கு அவசியம் ஞாத்தவியமாயுள்ளது ஸ்வரூபோபாய புருஷார்த்தங்களாகையாலும் அவற்றை அறிந்த ரகசியத்ரயம் உள்ளபடி அவற்றை இந்த ரகசியத்ரயம் உள்ளபடி பிரதிபாதிக்கையாலும் ரகசியத்ரயமும் அறிய வேண்டுவதென்கை ஸ்வஜ்ஞானம் பிராபக ஞானம் பிராப்ய ஞானம் முமுக்ஷுபிஹி ஞானத்ரயமுபாதேயம் ஏததன்யன்ன கிஞ்சனா என்ன கடவதிரே. And then he comments on the word rahasyam moondru or the three rahasyas, which is as follows. Rahasyam moondru என்று இவர் உத்தேசிக்கிறது திருமந்திரமும் துவயமும் சரமஸ்லோகமுமாகிற இவத்தை என்னுமிடம் மேலே சுஸ்பஷ்டம். So இவர் உத்தேசிக்கிறது. So what is he intending to say by saying the three mantras? It means the Tirumantram, Dvayam and Charamashlokam. And then he says, why are these called as rahasyas? Ivattai rahasyangal engirathu sakala vedanta sarartha pratipadakataya paramaguhyangalahayale. So why are these called rahasyas? As I mentioned, in our Indian tradition, especially in the Sri Vaishnava tradition, there is a very important aspect that we are able to make any long matter, we can actually represent a very big issue in a very concise manner. And once again, we can expand the same into so suppose that you have a small capsule. So what is mentioned in that capsule can be expanded into an ocean of knowledge. And once again, the ocean of knowledge can be concisely mentioned in a small capsule. So for this, I would just like to mention an anecdote. So I am sure you have heard about Annangaracharya Swami, who was given aptly the title of Mahamahimopadhyaya and also as Jagadacharya. Once it seems he went to Benares, which was in those days the seat of learning. Of course, still many scholars continue to be there. At that time, when a scholar worth his salt used to arrive at Banaras, a huge assembly of scholars would be created, and the person who is said to be a great scholar would be invited to that assembly, and he would be asked to give a talk impromptu on a topic that would be mentioned at that momentum. So there will be no previous even information or even inclination about what the topic would be when the person actually arrives at the hall, or he is not given any prior intimation. So Annangaracharya Swami, he went there and he was seated on a pedestal, considering that he was one of the greatest scholars. And the subject was announced. It was as follows: Sindhau Binduhu. That was the subject. That is a drop in an ocean. So Annangaracharya was a genius par excellence. He knew almost everything as far as the Indian tradition, the Vedas, Divya Prabandhas, their Vedic commentaries of the Vedas, commentaries of the Divya Prabandhas. He had unmatched scholarship in all the Sanskrit works, all the Tamil works, and also the Samanya Shastras like Nyaya, Vyakarana, Mimamsa, etc. So he found it very easy to give a talk on Sindhau Binduhu. So anybody can actually, even an ordinary person for that matter, can actually go near an ocean and pick up a small drop of water and drink it or do whatever he wants. After giving a wonderful lecture for 1 hour about the topic Sindhau Binduhu, he said, now I will take the liberty of modifying the subject slightly and giving one more talk or adding one more talk to what I have already spoken. And he said, the topic is Bindau Sindhuhu. How an ocean is encapsulated in a small drop. And having said that, he wonderfully spoke about how in the Pranava, the entire Vedic knowledge is contained, and how in the Ashtakshara Mahamantra, the entire knowledge of Vedanta is contained. So people were flabbergasted. They did not have anything to say. They were speechless. And afterwards, all of them, without any hesitation, without any argument, conferred the title as Jagadacharya and also Mahamahimopadhyaya Arjuna. So this is how it is. So we can say that Bindau Sindhu, in a small drop of water, a huge amount of knowledge is encapsulated. Or to put it in modern terms, we have a small capsule. So we all know that today we are studying the entire virus of this coronavirus that has pervaded the entire world, killing more than 100,000 people, or rather 250,000 people as we stand today. Scientists have authentically mentioned that the entire coronavirus is not heavier than half a gram. So you can see how half a gram of virus can affect millions of people all around the world. So the power of the Ashtakshara Mahamantra is such that it can liberate millions and billions of people, provided they actually do japa and also do the arthanusandhana, or concentrate on the meaning and also chant it as per the procedures. So this is how a huge amount of knowledge is encapsulated in this context. So Manavada Mamani says, here, why is this so important? He says, Ivatrai rahasyangalengirade sakala vedanta sarartha pratipadakataya paramaguhyangalahyade. So sakala vedanta sarartha pratipadakam. He says, this rahasya trayas, or these 3 mantras, comprehensively give information about all the aspects that are mentioned in all the Vedantas. That is the Upanishads and the subsidiary texts. And further, they are to be protected in a very secretive manner. So how these are called as rahasyas, I have already explained them. So they have to be protected in a very secret manner. And then he says, Ahaivakyattal adhikari nirdeshamam jnatavya nirdeshamam panni arulinaaraiti. As shown in this slide, this the purport of the present sutra is delineation of the adhikari and delineation of the subject matter, that is the three rahasya aspects. Next we come to the second sutra. Adil prathama rahasyam tirumantram. Among them, that is the three rahasyas, the first rahasya is tirumantram. This is the literal meaning of the sentence or the sutra. Why is Tirumantram accorded topmost priority? Why not Dvaya first and then Tirumantra? Or why not Charama Shloka first and then Tirumantra and Dvaya? Or why not Charama Shloka first, then Dvaya and then Tirumantra? What is the logic behind mentioning Tirumantra in the beginning? So Manavala Mamani says in a very beautiful manner. I'll just read out this and then explain the slide. இந்த ரகசியத்ரயத்திலும் பிரதம ரகசியம் ஏதென்னும் ஆகாங்கையிலே அருளிச் செய்கிறார். அதில் பிரதம ரகசியம் திருமந்திரம் என்று, அதாவது அந்த ரகசியத்ரயத்திலும் வைத்துக் கொண்டு இவ்வதிகாரிக்கு பிரதமம் ஞாதவியமான ரகசியம் ஸ்வரூப யாதாத்மியபரமாய் தியாஜ்யோபாதே விபாகத்தை பரிபூர்ணமாக பிறப்பிக்கும் அதான திருமந்திரம் என்கை. அனன்யார்ஹ சரணத்துவம், அனன்யார்ஹ சேஷத்துவம், அனன்ய சரணத்துவம், அனன்ய போக்யத்துவமாகிற ஆகாரத்ரயத்தையும் பிரதிபாதிக்கையாதே சேதனஸ்வரூப யாதாத்மிய பிரதிபாதன பரமாய் ததனுகுண தியாஜ்யோபாதே விபாகத்தையும் சுஸ்பஷ்டமாக பிரதிபாதியா நின்றுள்ள இம்மந்திரத்தாலே சுசிக்ஷிதமான ஸ்வரூபத்தை உடையவனுக்கிறே மற்ற ரகசியங்கள் இரண்டாலும் பிரதிபாதிக்கப்படுகிற உபாயோபேயங்களில் அபேட்சை ஜனிப்பது. So Manavala Mamanigal very beautifully says, unless a person knows what is his own original nature, knows about himself, he cannot know what is the upaya and also what is the prapya. He cannot know what is the means and also what is the end. So first he has to know who he himself is. Who am I is the question that is actually answered by the Tirumantra. So as I have mentioned here, it provides comprehensive knowledge or information about Swaswarupa, that is one's own original nature. And secondly, it is very important, it provides complete information about Tyajya and Upadeya, aspects that are to be given up by a Mumukshu and also those that are to be imbibed respectively. So what is Swaswarupa? What is one's own original nature? It has three components: Ananya Arhatvam, Ananya Sharanatvam, and Ananya Bhogyatvam. So this individual soul is worthy of belonging to him only. It is known as Ananya Arhatvam in Sanskrit. So there is a very beautiful story which all of you know. So the Supreme Lord Narayana, he is very choosy actually. He actually accepts only that which is offered to him in an exclusive manner. And we have several stories that depict this aspect. Suppose there is an entity that is offered to him in Naivedyam or an offering. We are very careful that it has not been offered to him also before. And it has not been consumed by anybody else before. So many times in our daily puja, there are some fruits are kept in a place. So before we offer them to the Lord, we ask the person who is in the house or persons who are there in the house as to whether it has already been offered or not. Already been offered elsewhere. Suppose we go to some other person's house and there somebody gives us some fruits. Then we make sure that if we have to offer it to the Lord in our house, we make sure that it is not offered to the Lord of their house. And also, it has to be ensured, we ensure that it has not been offered to the Lord before in our house also. Because whatever is already offered to Him once cannot be offered to Him again. So these are very important aspects that people like us who are actually brought up in a very traditional family ensure while they actually offer something to the Lord. And I am sure you people also have been taught about it. And there is a very beautiful statement by Swami Vedanta Deshika, who actually explains the happenings or pastimes of Lord Krishna in his Yadavabhyudaya Mahakavya, a great literary composition called Yadavabhyudaya. There he says, when the demoness Putana came to Nanda Gokula to actually give her milk to Krishna and kill him, Krishna actually enjoyed that milk that was given by Putana. Though he actually killed her, and he killed her for her own good, because it is mentioned specifically that he actually granted her liberation or moksha. But why he enjoyed that milk? So Swami Vedanta Deshika says, Putana came with a single-minded aim of offering her milk to Krishna and Krishna only, not to any other child who was there in Nandagopal. So it was Ananya Arha. That is, she thought that, she felt that it belonged to Krishna only and nobody else. So Swami Vedanta Deshika says, Stanyam tadvisha sammishram rasyamasi jagadguroho. Lord Krishna, who is the teacher or preceptor of the entire world, he immensely enjoyed the milk that was given to him by Putana because it contained the most important component of being Ananya Arhatva or Ananya Arha. It is intended to be offered to him and him alone, not anybody else. Similarly, the original nature of this Jivatma is, it is worthy of belonging to the Supreme Lord and Supreme Lord only, not to anybody else. So this is Ananya Arhatvam. The second aspect is Ananya Sharanatvam, which is the individual The second aspect is Ananya Sharanatvam. That is, this individual soul is worthy of being subservient to him only. So Sharana is a person who has totally surrendered himself to the Supreme Lord and therefore is subservient. So a person, how do you actually define a person who is subservient? What is subservience for that matter? If a person is subservient to me, what does he do? He says, your wish is my command. So whatever I wish, he will do it. So this is the nature of being a subservient person. So this Jivatma or individual soul is subservient or Sharana to the Supreme Lord only and not to anybody else. So it means it is not subservient to other deities, other demigods, other individuals, or even sometimes, many a times what happens? A person who is addicted to smoking, he is subservient to his cigars. A person who is subservient to drinking, he is subservient to alcohol. So he is subservient to inanimate objects. Whereas if a person loves his wife the most and always lives for her sake, then he is subservient to another Jivatma who is his wife. Similarly, it may be wife or husband or whoever for that matter. But ultimately, an individual soul has to realize that his original nature is he is subservient to the Supreme Lord only. Because if a person is subservient to his wife, how long can it be? It can be only until that Jivatma or individual soul resides in that body and his wife's soul resides in her body. Because once this soul leaves this body, there is no question of wife, son, daughter, aunt, uncles, grandfather, father, mother, etc. Therefore, the individual soul is worthy of being subservient to him only. And then Ananya Bhogyatvam. The individual soul is worthy of being enjoyed by him only. So this is Bhoktra Bhogya Bhava. Not only this individual soul becomes a Bhogya and he becomes the Bhokta, he actually has to realize that he is an entity that is fit to be enjoyed by the Supreme Lord. It already is so, but it has to be realized by us. And we should be voluntarily, we should have that mindset to say that this belongs to you, this Jivatma belongs to you, and kindly have it. You actually partake of this Jivatma. That is what all the Acharyas say. Alwar says, Yanadavi Tandurinde. The maximum I can offer is my own Atma. And then, of course, he says, Yanadavi Aryana. Who is this Atma? Who am I to offer it? I can offer it only when I am the owner. Suppose I want to give this pen to Shriman Keshavdas and say, please have this pen for yourself. I can do it only when this pen belongs to me. I am the owner of this pen. But when I offer this Atma to the Supreme Lord, who am I to offer? Because I am not the owner of my soul. So then Nammalvar says, these are all different stages of Sharanagati. But ultimately, I will not go into that detail because it has to be explained in great detail. Ultimately, the individual soul is worthy of being enjoyed by him only. So these aspects that are unique to the individual soul are well established by this unique mantra. That is what Swami Manavada Mamuni says in his commentary. He says, Adavade, I have already read that. I will just read it once again and conclude today's class. Ananyarha Sharanatvam, Ananya Bhogyatvam Pratipadikayale, Chetana Swarupa Yathatmi Pratipadana Paramai, Tadana Gunamana Tyajyopadeya Vibhagatayum, Suspashtamaha Pratipadiyani Nindrullain Mantrattale, Sushikshitamana Swarupatay Udevanakire. This is one very important technical term that is mentioned in Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. So it says there is a word called Swarupa Shiksha. What is this Swarupa Shiksha? Shiksha is education. So imparting of education that is associated with the nature of a Sri Vaishnava. Of course, I hope I will not be hurting the sentiments of anybody. A Sri Vaishnava is defined as a person who never engages in censuring another person. He never engages in praising himself. He never engages in vindictively behaving with regard to somebody. So several characteristics have been laid down by Swami Pillalokacharya, which comes in the Dvaya Prakarana. He says, புறம் உண்டான பத்து கிளையடைய வாசனையோடே விடுகையும் வேறு தப்பார் என்ன துணிந்திருக்கையும் பேத்துக்கு தொரிக்கையும். He gives about 10 to 12 different characteristics that are associated, that have to be associated with the Sri Vaishnava. So a true Sri Vaishnava has to have all these characteristics. He says, Paramasatvikanode sahavasam pannuhayam the Vaishnava adhikarikya avashyapekshitam. So even Swami Ramanujacharya, while he was about to depart for his divine abode, he gave 6 commandments, which I am sure many of you are familiar with. He says, Patitva bhashyam tat pravachanam ashakto shadarupagiri shraddha, etc. Kutim tat kritva tasmin yadagiri tate nityavasati, etc. So he says the first duty, as per the requirement of those days, was, as ordained by Ramanujacharya, is study the Sri Bhashya and also propagate it. If that is not possible, study the Divya Prabandhas and propagate them, etc., etc. Here a question arises as to why did he give more priority to Sri Bhashya rather than the Divya Prabandhas? That's a very interesting discussion, about which my Acharya has given several new insights, which I will not go into now. But he says, if that is not possible, do this. If that is not possible, do it. If that is not possible, you go to Melkote Tirunarayanapuram, the Divya Desham I belong to, and stay there, having at least a small hut. And then he also used to say, and finally he says, if nothing is possible, you be subservient to another Sri Vaishnava and lead your life. So Velakudi Varadacharya Swami used to jokingly mention, a Sri Vaishnava heard all these things. He said, okay, what are them? What are the commandments given by Swami Ramanujacharya? Please let me know. And his teacher said, 1, if this is not possible, 2, if not, studying Sri Bhashya is very difficult. I will not be able to do it. So what is the next option? And he said, study the Divya Prabandhas and propagate them. Okay, that is also a little bit difficult. So he went on asking, and finally it was mentioned, Oru Sri Vaishnavan Pakkavil Udangi Vartittal, being subservient to a Sri Vaishnava and lead your life. Then immediately it seems the person remarked, oh, this is the most difficult thing of all. Let me forget about that. I'll do the first option. I'll take the first option itself, that is studying the Sri Bhashya and propagating it. He used to jokingly mention like that. Why I am mentioning this is, a Sri Vaishnava's main characteristic is mentioned by the word Swarupa Shiksha. He should not engage in censuring any other Sri Vaishnava. So when Kurat Alwar, the direct disciple of Ramanujacharya, was deprived of his eyes by the wicked Chola king, Sri Kurat Alwar never actually blamed Ramanujacharya or the Chola king for that matter, for behaving so cruelly, because his eyes were extracted and he was made blind. And the height of Sri Vaishnava philosophy, of a practicing Sri Vaishnava, is, he said that when he asked, what is the boon you require? He said, Nan Petrananmaye Naluranam Paravindu. Naluran was the traitor who actually behaved like a follower of Ramanujacharya, but who actually incorrectly exposed these people in the Shaiva to the Shaiva Chola king. And he was instrumental in the eyes being gouged off from Kurat Alwar and Periyanambi, the Acharya of Ramanujacharya. So Kurat Alwar said he has been instrumental in gouging off the eyes of the great Periyanambi. He did not mention about himself. And Swami Periyanambi, he could not withstand, he was very old at that time. And he could not withstand the eyes being, the pain of the eyes being gouged off. Therefore, he actually leaves his mortal coil and he proceeds to the divine abode of Vaikuntha. But still, this Naluran has become a recipient of a very heinous crime. And he is sure to go to Naraka or hell. But Swami Kurattalwan, he showed the height of the behavior of a Sri Vaishnava. He said, even Naluran should get moksha. That is my request or prarthana to the Supreme Lord Varadaraja, he says. And he says, why have I been deprived of my eyes at this age? Probably I should have seen a person who I should have seen and made fun of a person who has not actually applied this Urdhva Pundra or Thiruman in a straight way. Many times we see people, young children, old people, who are unable to control their hand, etc., and apply the Urdhva Pundram in a manner that is not straight. So we call it as Konal in Tamil. So Kurattalwan says, why I have been deprived of my eyes? It is probably because I have made fun of a Sri Vaishnava, having seen by my eyes when they existed about a person who has not applied the Thiruman in the proper manner. So this is the height of Sri Vaishnavism. Sri Vaishnava Adhikari, who imbibes upon himself even sins that he has not committed, who actually says, probably this is why I have been granted this type of a punishment. And he says, even the worst enemy should be granted liberation. So this is known as Swarupa Shiksha in Sri Vaishnava parlance. And that Swarupa Shiksha is provided by the Tirumantram. That is what Swami Manavala Mamuni says here. Swarupattai Udayavanakkire Mattai Rahasyangalirandaaram Pratipadikkappadahira Upayopeyangalil Apekshai Janipade Ahayal Swarupayathatmi Pratipadakhamana Tirumantram Prathamarahasyam Yendre Ennakure Illai. So there is no doubt regarding very explicitly, very boldly saying that Tirumantra is the first rahasya that a person has to know, has to understand. So with these words, I conclude today's lecture. So if there are any questions, you can ask them. Similarly, any observations, and one or two questions I will try to answer today of the previous class, provided they are shared with me.
Swami, thank you very much. I wanted to ask about Kaivalya. In the beginning, you spoke about Kaivalya, and I wanted to ask about whether Kaivalya is a permanent.
Yes.
Is permanent. As per the,
please complete the question. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Okay, so my full question was: is Kaivalya permanent? And where is the person or the Atma who is a Kaivalya person? Where is he situated? If he is he in the material world or the spiritual world?
It is. Yes.
And we have heard that there's a difference between the Tenacharya Sampradaya, Deshika Sampradaya about this point, and also there are also we have also heard about some distinction between a Karya Vaikuntha and Karana Vaikuntha, and whether the Chatusanas, the four Kumaras who had gone to Vaikuntha, whether they had gone to Karya Vaikuntha or Karana Vaikuntha, or whether they were Kaivalyas or whether they were not Kaivalyas. Were they Prapanas or Bhaktas? This is my
actually question. To be very honest, in a very honest way, I would like to answer this question. My guru used to tell, so suppose I tell you a story about a world that you have totally not visited at all. Can you understand? It is very difficult to understand. That is the question. Because now, suppose I say a pen. I show this is a pen. And say this is, the word pen denotes such an object. And such an object is denoted by the word pen. So this is known as, in the Shastras, it is known as Shakti Graha, or the nature of the knowledge of the nature between the word and the object or entity that it denotes. So these are gross objects which have mass, etc., according to science. And they can easily be shown and say this is a pen. You call it by the word pen, which has 3 alphabets, P, E, N, etc. In Sanskrit, we define it in a slightly different manner. We say lekhani. It is lakarottara, ekarottara, kakarottara, karottara, nakarottara, ikara. So la, e, kha, e, and ni, na, e, etc. But when it comes to abstract entities, it is very difficult. For example, I say time. Has anyone realized the exact nature of time? It is not an entity that can be showed like this. But we all the time refer to the aspect of time. Inherently, we have got some knowledge about time. So this is one of the, once again, what is the concept of time, what is the meaning of the word time, etc. Once again, it's very, very, very abstract. And we only have the knowledge of aspects that are used to measure time with reference to something. Without reference to something, you can never define or understand what time is as well. That is why he said, Kalarupi Bhagavan. It is synonymous with the Supreme Lord himself. Similarly, when we talk about God also, Ishvara, Vaikuntha, Lord Narayana also, the knowledge or the concept that we understand, it's very abstract. Many times my father keeps telling me, suppose I say, all of you are artists, and I ask you to write, imagine a bird that is flying and write it, draw it. Each person's drawing will be totally different from the other. Because my imagination of a bird is different from your imagination, and your imagination is different from another person's imagination. So it's not like, even when I say imagine that a pen is there, I will imagine a black pen, you may imagine a blue pen, another person may imagine a red pen. So even the concept of God or Supreme Lord Narayana or whatever we tell, I may think about the icon of Lord Shalvapillai Narayana when the word Narayana is mentioned. You may think about Varadaraja, you may think about somebody, may think about Lord Venkateshwara in Tirupati. Or he may not think about any icon at all. So from what my Acharya used to tell me, there is lot of confusion. It is not incorrect. Confusion is justified because we don't have any proper concept of what Vaikuntha Loka is as of now. So some people say, when we say Sadeva Somya Namagrasi in the Vedas, what happened to Vaikuntha? Does it apply to Vaikuntha or not? The Nitya Vaikuntha, Karya Vaikuntha. So many theories have been floated. I will not say they are incorrect. I will not say they are correct also. So all I would like to say is, as far as Kaivalya is concerned, they have mentioned that it is not Vaikuntha Loka. It is something other than Vaikuntha Loka, but it is eternal from then onwards. And as far as Vaikuntha Loka is concerned, we have a very vivid and explicit description of Vaikuntha Loka by Ramanujacharya himself in the Vaikuntha Gadya. But here also it very clearly says, Divya Varana Shata Sahasravrte, Divya Kalpakata Rupa Shobhite, Divyodhyana Shata Sahasra Koti Bhiravrte. Divine gardens of how many numbers? Shata Sahasra Koti. 100,000 billions or crores, as the English people say. 1 crore is 10 million. So 100,000 crores, 100,000 or 100 thousands of billions or trillions or whatever you call it. That means they are endless. So that is why it is just mentioned in the Purusha Sukta, Padosya Vishwa Bhutani, Tripadasya Amritam. It's called Tripad Vibhuti. It is thrice the entire, all the things that are put together in this world. So I will not go into Karya Vaikunta, Nitya Vaikunta, that Kaivalya, that this, because my Acharya used to, even many a times he used to scold us. Don't discuss too much about something that we are unable to decide as of now. Even the nature of the Jivatma, nature of the Paramatma has to be realized internally. As all the Alwar say, as Pilladokacharya says, as Manavana Mamuni says. These are all education to our intellect. Based on the intellect, we have to do japa, which will culminate in dhyana and then enable us to have realization. So this is the training to the intellect that is given to perform those things in a logical, with a very passionate, and with in a very devoted manner. So these discussions will lead us nowhere. Karya Vaikunta, Nitya Vaikunta, that, this, and all those things, because it does not give us any verdict as far as the final issue is concerned. So I will not go into that. This much is mentioned. Let us have that much as of now, because there are no words that are available to us to describe something that is totally otherworldly. Even if it is mentioned, it is based on our experience of today's world only, which does not hold any water once we leave this body. So I'll stop answering that question in that manner. And my Acharya used to say, these are all tapogamyas. These can be understood only by tapas and not by any discussion. But we can have what is mentioned by our Purvacharyas in this manner without any doubt, and rely upon that and do what we have to do practically.
So just one small thing. I understood there's a difference between Tenacharya Sampradaya and Deshika Sampradaya on the permanence of Kaivalya. And so therefore, for Sri Vaishnavas, Kaivalya, for Tenacharya, if you think it's permanent because it's a form, you said it's there in Amarakosha as a type of moksha.
Amarakosha does not distinguish because it deals with the synonyms only. But actually they are not synonyms, because though they refer, in effect they refer to the same entity. For example, Amara, Nirjara, Deva. So Amaras are those who, all these things refer to demigods. Amara means those who do not have death. Nirjara means those who do not have old age. So are they both the same? No. And the Deva means those who shine forth. So they all refer to demigods, but they are not actually, from the purest sense, they are not synonyms.
So for Sri Vaishnavites, especially Tenacharya Sampradaya followers, this Kaivalya is a dead end, because if you
like a dead end.
If you cannot come back, and you cannot go forward.
Yes, no, there is no question of forward. That is it. That's all, according to our Sampradaya. But whether he possesses a body at that time, whether or not, it's not clear. And one more very important aspect is, our acharyas, though they knew, my guru used to say, they have not revealed certain things because we are not capable of understanding. So my acharya used to give an example. So a young boy comes and he sees a radio where some music is coming. Then he will ask, how is it there is somebody sitting inside the radio and singing? So we say yes, sir. Say yes, somebody is sitting there. They are sitting somewhere, but it is coming here. We give some very trivial answer, because you cannot explain the entire mechanism of how radio waves are carried, and there is a radio station where the music is recorded, from there how it is coming. And so even now we don't understand. Even now I don't understand how the internet is helping us do all these things. We vaguely understand that, so we are connected to satellite and it comes. But do I know how internet works, the entire mechanism? No, none of us know for that matter fully, because we are not expected to know. We just use the fruits of technology and don't enter into the technology itself. So they have mentioned something to quench our curiosity. Ultimately, it is by tapas or by dhyana and by realization only we have to know the reality.
So, Swami, a small thing you was mentioning about offering of Naivedyam, that you have to be very careful that Naivedyam has not already been offered to Sriman Narayana before, or it has not been offered to some or not been offered to some other Anya Devata or whatever. No, normally what I see is that the Purohit, the person who is offering, makes a break in the skin of the fruit so that people at least see that the fruit is broken. But another thing I wanted to mention that is in there are some aspects in Sri Vaishnavism where something is offered to someone first and then offered to Sriman Narayana, like the garland of Andal, or like the
that is because the Lord himself wanted it to happen. As we say in case of Shabari also in Ramayana.
Yes.
So she actually purely from the point of view of knowing whether it is sweet enough and it is nice, it seems that it is mentioned that she even, we call as yechal, or she consumed some portion of it. That there is no equal word of yechal in English because that concept does not exist in Western culture. So it seems that she took that some portion of the fruit and then offered it to the Lord. But once again, because it was Ananyarha, and she did it purely from that point of view, it was greatly appreciated by Lord Ram.
So you got to you explained the three different points. These three different points that first of all that we should not be. We are only subservient to Sriman Narayana only, like that. But we see in Vanashrama Dharma, so many people in Vanashrama Dharma, they are subservient to other people in a social manner. The wife is subservient to the husband. The Shudras are subservient to the upper Dvija classes. So how is this? How do prapanas exist in a Vanashram system?
It is very clear. So as far as a person is considered to be in his body, as a son he has certain duties to fulfill as a husband or a wife or a father or sister or brother. So we call it as Sharira Nibandhana and Atma Nibandhana. So on account of possessing the particular body, he has to be subservient to his father. He has to obey his father and all those things. Obey his acharya, obey his wife also if she is telling the correct thing. As far as the Atma is concerned, it is subservient only to the Supreme Lord. So on account of possessing the body, you are subservient to so many people, which is also very much in line with the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. There is no contradiction between the two. In fact, they are complementary. Because a Sri Vaishnava's father also is supposed to be, if he is a Sri Vaishnava. As a Sri Vaishnava, if he is subservient to his father also, it is most acceptable, because we say ultimately the Lord fancies, that is at the next level, when we go to a different dimension, different paradigm, the Lord loves those who love his devotee more than those who love him himself. As we have seen in the case of Madhurakavi Alwar, that is the height of Sri Vaishnavism, where he says, Verunnum Namariyen, I don't know any deity other than Nammalvar himself. He specifically says, and he has never sung even one stanza about any deity, any Lord Narayana, any form of Lord Narayana. He has sung only about Nammalvar, but he is considered to be the height of Sri Vaishnavism, and he is included in the group of Alvars. So That is why he says, so suppose I like somebody, then I feel if he comes to my house, I feel my wife should take care of him very well. Or somebody else whom I like, they should be taken care of by my wife very well. They should be offered food at the proper time. They should be offered proper place to sleep. They should be made comfortable. It is because that person belongs to me. Similarly, the Lord says, he will value a person who is devoted to his devotee rather than more devoted to himself. That is what is called as Antimopaya Nishta, which we will come to in due course.
So on this theme of that the Atman, the individual Atman belongs to the Supreme Lord. In fact, everything belongs to the Supreme Lord only. So we are told to perform property to surrender to the Supreme Lord, but actually, how can one surrender something that someone doesn't own? How is it possible to surrender something? We have our idea is that we are ourselves our own masters, but
so that is the height of Sri Vaishnavism. When you realize, the moment you realize that this Atma does not belong to you, then it means Prapatti has already happened. So until you feel that you have some independence with regard to your Atman, you are supposed to do Prapatti. So that is the height of Sri Vaishnavism. That is the difference between the Jnanacharya Sampradaya and Vadagalai Sampradaya. Where you say, that is why that is a very, very, very deep question which cannot be answered in one word. But I will deal with that in the next class, or we can discuss that. Is to be discussed in great detail. But it's a very valid point, which I will explain, or we can discuss in the next class.
And you were mentioning that we should not criticize any other person, especially Sri Vaishnavas. But if we are studying Shastra like Sri Bhashya or whatever we are studying, and we are preaching that, we are trying to teach others that, we encounter so many people who have following different philosophies, who have other paths, and how is it possible to teach the proper path to people without criticizing the other path and without criticizing that person?
So criticizing, what do you mean by criticizing? I explained it recently in the Sri Bhashyam class. How does Ramanujacharya refute the Advaita philosophy? What are the words he uses? He doesn't say it is trash, to put it in English. He doesn't say it is wrong or something like that. Of course, he doesn't use any unparliamentary word like some authors of our ancient works have used. Even when he criticizes the Advaita in the Mahasiddhanta in the beginning, he says, Atmayathatmya vidbhihi anadarani. He uses a very, very, very beautiful expression. He says, these views should not be respected by those persons who know the truth. How beautifully, how balancedly he has criticized. You have to see that. So he says, while refuting the Advaita philosophy, he says, Atmayathatmya vidbhihi anadaraniyam. Very, very carefully he says, these views which are propounded in the Mahapurva-paksha should not be honored as authentic by those who know the truth about the Atman. So he never says this is wrong, this is false, or use any bad word when he actually criticizes. And also khandana is the word. I am sure you have heard about it. Come across the word khandana. Have you come across the word khandana?
Yes.
So it is refutation. One of my teachers very beautifully explained what is khandana. Khanda means part in Sanskrit. So Khandana is what? It is known as Apurnatva Jnapanam. So when you say you refute something or you do Khandana of a theory, what does it mean? It actually means that you are pointing out to the opponent that his view is partial only, nothing more than that. So you are not censuring him in any manner. It is only that you are pointing out to him that his view is not comprehensive, it is partial.
Yes, in
So
English.
Ramanujacharya is very careful when he refutes other Siddhantas.
In English, there's a saying that half truth is no better than a lie. And
Yes.
when people go to the court, they ask them to tell the truth, but they also tell them to tell the whole truth. So Advaita may be half truth.
Yes.
And therefore it has to be refuted. My final point, I don't know if other people have other points, is you mentioned these 6 orders of Sripad Ramanujacharya. Can you give us the sloka and the six things in order? I think also this studying Sri Bhashya is easier than
I
being.
don't recall the shloka as it is. I will. You please remind me in the next class. I will start with that.
Thank you very much. So
and your questions, you have raised quite a few queries which I would like to answer, but today we don't have time. Probably we can have one session for a question answering only on a time that is very convenient to all of us. Thank you very much. Shri Shailesh Daya Patram Jibhatyadi Gunarnavam Yatindra Pravanam Vande Ramyaja Mataram Munim